Hello, Hussein. Welcome to the Hidden White podcast. Great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're based in Canada, right?
Yes, Vancouver, Canada, one of the most beautiful cities. It's like Melbourne, I think,
Yeah.
where
Okay. I
they
haven't
always
been,
compare.
so can't compare.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't been as well, but it's said that it is the place where they compare it. Like, so probably that's closer to you there.
The sister city. And
Yes.
what's your background? Talk to us. I mean, you've got a quite a unique background, but the book that I want to talk about, which is your newest book, The Dark Art of Life Mastery,
Mhm.
is where I really want to take this podcast today. But give us a little bit of a glimpse into your background because that'll sort of put some context around why we're here and why this book's here.
Sure. So I think the word that describes me the most is an entrepreneur. So I like to pursue ideas and to build companies, and I like to help other people build companies. So it wasn't enough to build my own; I helped other people build their own. And I also am a writer. I've been writing since I was 16. Never really thought of it as a profession I could pursue, but it's probably the second love of my life. And then in a past life and in an imagined life, I'm a musician as well.
I can see in the background you've got some guitar there and some things going
Yeah,
on.
I used to play the guitar. I still play the guitar, but not as frequent and as intense as I used to.
Okay, so like passions, you've got passions.
Yes, for sure. I kind of pursue. I think I pursue every passion that I have, um, and some of them stuck, and I stayed with, and I developed, and some of them I reached a point where I was done with it, and I moved on.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you have to do that sometimes, which is difficult, right? Because you sort of think, oh, if I stop now, I miss all that stuff that I've learned and done.
It's an interesting perspective. I usually don't think about it that way. I kind of like when I was in music, I pursued it. I played in bands. I headlined certain bands. I pursued it with all of me, and then I was just interested in something else. So I I don't, and I try to teach other people this where I like the 5 year old, 7 year old kind of approach where they when they're playing something, they're so intense and they play in it, and when they're done playing it, they move on with full intensity on the other thing, and there's no blame. I think we fall into that all the time. That you know what, I've spent 5 years learning engineering. I have to work with it. Well, why? Because spent 5 years. What the 5 years are spent already. Where
Yeah,
am I right now? Where am I? What do I feel? What do I want to pursue? And if I still have the same passion towards it, great. If I don't, I better pursue something else because that's where I am right now.
yeah. And I guess you've probably found this in helping other entrepreneurs start up their businesses, that often, people would get to a point where they're just like, it's not working, it doesn't feel right. And it's
Mm,
hard to let go, right? And I think there's a lot of people probably listening to this podcast out there in the world today. Well, I know we know there is, because a lot of people are dissatisfied with what they do,
mm,
but yet it's that struggle of giving up what they know and trying to pursue something new, right?
yeah. Definitely, it's a struggle, and it's a sunken cost fallacy. Is that I spent all this time and money and energy, um, so I invested all this much. I better continue, or else I'll lose all of it invested. And I think there's a different perspective of seeing that. Well, I've already spent all that money; it's already lost, or I already spent that time. I'm not going to recoup it. The question is, if I pursue it right now, am I just pursuing it because I spent that money and time and energy? Or am I pursuing it because I still have the same energy that I started with, the same desire, the same pursuance of the goals? And we see a lot of people stuck living a life that they don't want anymore, but just because they lived it before. I had a friend of mine who studied with me engineering, great guitar player, and when we finished engineering, said, "Well, I'm not going to pursue guitar because I spent all this time engineering." He loves the guitar, and then meet him after 2 3 years. Well, I spent now 7 years, and now I spent 10 years, and but what he's losing on is the pursuance of something that he really loves. And the other, I think, fallacy that happens here is that both of them are equally likely to succeed or fail. Very few people think about it like that. They think of what's spent instead of thinking, well, what's the likelihood of success? Are they equal in the likelihood of success? And even if something succeeds, let's say you succeed in a career of engineering because you
Yeah.
spent all that time and energy. If you don't like it, you're locking yourself. It's a golden prison. Yeah, you're making money and you're progressing, but you're not happy. Is it
Mm,
worth it? And
mm.
only you can make that decision. There's no right or wrong here. It's just that you need to make that choice for yourself, and that choice needs to be anchored in the moment, which I recommend and always advise people to do.
Yeah, I like that. So your background in entrepreneurship is in the
Mhm.
technology space, education and culture. Just talk to us a little bit about those businesses and startups that you worked on.
Sure. One of my first tech startups was we built online games in the early 2000s, and that was acquired by the Disney of the Middle East. It's called Spacetoon, and I ended up joining the company as part of the acquihire, and I helped them build 10 companies inside that company, and I
Right.
loved it. I had particular skills. I write and I read quite a bit in business. I love business and I love learning about it. I think because there wasn't any courses on business in Syria, so I learned from books, and it was fascinating, a fascinating world for me, how people take an idea and make it happen, and the dynamics of business. It was like a fascinating world for me. And and I'm good at design, so I will help people think about their business. I will help them design the presentation and the pitch, and I help them write the profile of the company. So it became a very good skill at the start of the company, and I
Hmm.
helped them build those companies. And I liked that. So I ended up continuing to do so. And I worked with artists, musicians, filmmakers. Whichever I come across a person and they're working on an interesting idea, I'll jump in and see how can I help. And that gave me a breadth of knowledge. And it satisfied my curiosity. I'm a very curious person. And I hear about something and I was like, I have to learn more.
Right. That's
So
good.
that became my kind of go-to, and ended up working with on the first animation coming out of the UAE. I worked with one of the early jewelry designer. I ended up building the largest marketplace for Middle Eastern art in the world back in 2006, and then I built like 5 ad agencies in different capacities. Some of them were award winning. The first content marketing agency in Dubai, and then I moved to Canada and had to start all over again from
Okay.
zero.
How long you been in
Not
Canada
that I
for?
wanted to.
How long you been there for?
10 years now, coming
Okay.
on 11.
Okay. And so, sorry, what was the reason for the move?
Well, we wanted a better lifestyle for us and the kids, me and my wife, and the education was in Canada was better for us being Syrians. Not having a different nationality other than Syrian will allow for my kids to explore more of the world. And also, we at the time, unfortunately, the war was raging in
Yeah.
Syria, the civil war. So it wasn't like a viable option if we were to leave Dubai. Dubai is an awesome city, but the challenge is you're in the place, but you're never off the place. You never can get a nationality, or even if you stay there for 20, 30 years. So that was not a viable option for our kids. We wanted a better life for them. So that's why we chose Canada. And I've
Yeah.
always wanted to come to North America and Canada.
Yeah, likewise. So what led you to writing this book? Is it sort of written based on your exploration of life?
What made me write the book is that COVID happened, and I was, I
Yeah.
think, having this face to face match with death, if that makes sense. It's like we know we're gonna die, but COVID made it so close. Like people were unfortunately dying left, right, and center, and we were all kind of equal in that experience that
Mm.
that can happen at any time. And I felt that I haven't left my kids or the people I care about, like the entrepreneurs that I mentor, with any of my previous experience. written the way I want it to be written. So I've always enjoyed mentorship, and I've been lucky to have read books by people who helped me throughout my life, and I felt like they haven't contributed. I've lived a great life, and I wasn't regretting anything, but I felt that if I leave tomorrow, I'll be leaving my kids with nothing
Right.
to benefit from and to take from the 3 decades of experience that I've been through. So I started
Mm.
writing, and that drove me to write the book. I've been trying to write a book before that. I tried to write 4 books before, but I was writing them to become an author, if that makes any sense.
Right.
But
Yep.
this book I wrote because I wanted to contribute, and I kind of stand behind every word that is in the book. It wasn't just written; it was kind of the lived experience communicated in a conversation.
More intentional.
Yes, for sure.
But you've been a writer for a long time. So was the writing process of writing this book fairly easy for you?
It was the one of the hardest things I've ever
There
done.
you go.
It's
In what
kind of like
sense?
well, the if you it's like what is the saying, the door of the carpenter is always kind of not working, or like it's like when I write for others, because I used to write for branding agencies and I write for clients. I'm more, I think, in a different mindset, but when I'm writing for me, it's hard to step out of yourself to see how your journey looks. You're always looking from the inside out, and
Right.
how things feel may not land well. Like a story might be meaningful to me, but when I say it to somebody else, they might not get. So you
Yes.
have to
Okay.
be pretty selective about each word that you put there. And also, I'm communicating. I wanted to communicate a message. I didn't just want to. That's also my style. I'm a mentor by I love to mentor people. I love to give them direction. So I wanted to do it in such a way that it doesn't say, like if the book was to say something, it would be like, choose every page, like choose something. God damn it, move. Like kind of
Uh-huh.
that thing. But I can't do that. It has to say it in such a way that it moves people, and it has to string together. So it was really hard, and I think I took me a year and a half to just write it my way, and then working with the artist Antonio Piedade, who's a Portuguese artist, to create the artworks and wait for him to because I wanted an illustration for every chapter. I wanted it in such a particular way that I wanted to design the experience from end to end. And that kind of possessive perfectionist, of course, made it even harder.
Right. So you're a perfectionist?
For sure. And then for
Yeah.
this project, I was even more of a perfectionist.
Yeah. Did you find it confrontational, like writing from a personal point of view?
Yeah, I do. It you have to when you put something on paper, it sounds different than it when it sounded in your head,
Yeah.
and you have to uh, in a way, there's a saying in writing, it's like kill your babies. You have to, because every word, everything you write is yours, but you have to also edit and pick out some stuff. So it was for the help of my partner, of some of my friends, Joel, who helped me edit the book, who's a writer. So I took the help of others, but also from myself. I had to write something and then come back to it. It's like, I don't really. I wanted to design every word, and I take a long time writing. If I wanted to write something, to let go of a writing piece is a very hard job for me, because
Yeah.
I've always, like an artist, I always have something else to add, and always I never happy with any piece of writing that I put out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Was it a vulnerable process? Like, did you find you sometimes writing and then look back over it and go, it doesn't sound quite truthful or it didn't sound quite aligned? Was that an issue at all? Or
To a certain extent, I think um, it was easy for me to be honest, but it was selecting which experiences to write about, and opening up. Like a lot of the book talks about my failures, and not just my failures as a person, but the failure, for example, to manage time, the idea of, life doesn't respond. It wasn't, in many ways, it's not an aspirational book, it's a realistic book. So it does push people to move forward, but it's not like a rah rah, you're gonna succeed. It's like, no, sometimes it's like everything you're gonna do is just gonna fail, and you
Mm.
can't do anything about it. And I think to say that and to put it in writing and to acknowledge it as someone who I don't, in many ways, I don't believe in failure, but I have to live with failure,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense. A lot of things don't make any sense. Like you start, the third chapter says, then you die. And you're like trying to build up, but I had to write it because it's reality. It was the reality I was living with while writing the book.
Mm.
And unless I'm real with people, I felt that I would lose their trust in a way if I wasn't real with every word that I put there.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think there's a lot of that out there in the in the space. The quick ways to hack life mastery or whatever, rather than an
Mhm.
authentic journey shared by one person, which you can actually draw out those lessons and take them on to your personal style because what works for you won't work for me necessarily because I'm definitely not a
Mhm.
perfectionist, right? So I think it's important to share that, and I really love that you've sort of written it as your way to contribute back to your kids and to other people that will benefit from it. Why the dark art?
Mm. Very cool. Well, because life mastery is really um, has to deal with uncertainty. And how do you master something that you don't know? Because mastery, let's say, of carpentry, or let's say the making of tea, or the mastery of technology, uh, it's something that is known. You know the start and the end. You just learn and learn and learn, and at a certain point, you learn everything about that thing, and you achieve mastery. But life is something you never know. Every moment presents you with a completely different set of choices. Tomorrow might be completely different than today. Sometimes a tweet by a certain person can change the world. So, how do you master something that is uncertain and unknown? It requires something more than learning, it requires something more than practice. It requires accessing the dark arts where you step into different personalities. It's an art because you never you every stroke changes things, so it's a constantly changing thing. And that's why I say it's the dark arts, because you never know what you're going to find, and you never know who you're going to become, and you never
Mm,
know what you're dealing with. So if I would say, the secret to mastering life, I would be lying, because there is no secret to mastering life. If I said, here's the process, or the finally the whatever it is, like 1 2 3 about mastering life, I'll be lying. So it is a dark art, because the more you add to it, like with every brush stroke, with every choice you make, life completely change, and it's like a work of art that you continue to do it. And it's kind of like working in the dark sometimes,
right.
that you have to work sometimes, and then after a while you discover what happens. Like Steve Jobs says, sometimes the things don't connect until you look backwards and say, oh, so that's how my life connects. you
Yes,
know
yes, yeah,
so yeah, we're stumbling through life until we find, oh, it makes sense somehow.
yeah, yeah. And I love that. I mean, I look back at my life and go, geez, okay, well, that sort of connects, and that's why I'm here where I am right now. Um, you know, there's no magical wand, I suppose, to say abracadabra, here is my purpose and my life path, rather
Mm.
than you're pursuing life through this uncertainty, uncomfortableness, and with courage to discover and learn and grow and pivot and figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I do have I do have let's say a framework that I didn't include in the book because it's something I'm still working on. It's the how to understand life, and life. I like the number three because it makes things easier. Life unfolds in three domains: the systemic domain, the community domain, and the personal domain. And you don't have power over the systemic domain. You need collective action of let's say a group of people, a large group of people, multiple
Yeah,
communities to change the system. For
yeah,
example, if you live in Canada, you have social safety net, which means that as an entrepreneur, if you leave your job, you're not gonna be bankrupt because let's say you're sick or anything. But in the States, you don't have social safety net. So if you leave your job, you lose your health care. So these are systemic forces that you can't help. So you're just subject to them. You can't change them. And then there's the community where your words and actions unfold, but your community doesn't align with you. You can influence it, but your influence is limited. The personal domain is where you have the most power, not
Mm,
ultimate power, but the most power. And that power results in one thing and one thing only, which is choice, your ability to choose. Because
mm,
many times, let's say you said that you're a little bit sick today and you're feeling, let's say, a bit unwell. You don't control that. You can control how to choose to do it, like you chose to show up and do this podcast, which I'm very thankful and for that. But we don't choose what happens to us tomorrow, but we can choose how we deal with it, how we see it. And that is the ultimate power. And the whole book is about that power of choice, which is the ultimate, where we have our ultimate power. And I recommend people focus, because any kind of effort spent somewhere else will be wasted unless you understand that it resonates or comes or emanates from the power of choice and personal choice.
and you sort of talked about that, like if you could write each chapter, just choose, choose, choose.
Yes.
So it's obviously a big theme. Talk to us about choice. There's some debates that potentially we don't have much choice at all because of how we're
Mm.
wired and how the brain operates. What would you say to that?
Yeah, it's hard to say because we're the brain is still, let's say, and our mind is still all a lot of us or a lot of what we know about ourselves is still being discovered, and we're still learning and we continue to learn about ourselves. But what I know and what I've seen, and having experienced thousands of people and across, I would say, different cities, different cultures, and different disciplines, what I've seen is the most successful people have make choices in the moment. What does that mean? Now, decisions rely on a lot of data. So if I want to make a decision whether, I want to go to, let's say, I want to travel to Canada, I have to decide which city and I have to study which timing because I want a certain outcome. So that's a decision. It requires data, and I can make an informed decision. But a
Yeah.
choice is really something that is internal. Why do I choose something? Why do I choose, let's say, this person and to live my life with this person? These are not things dependent on data because there is no data. I have no idea how this person that I'm living with and I choose to spend my life with is going to wake up tomorrow. Are they going to wake up sick? Are they going to wake up a different person? Are they going to be, have I experienced them in every situation? No. So choice is a power because it's a commitment. It's a promise for yourself. It is something that you enact on every day,
Mm.
and you can pursue the choice or not. And that is what choice is basically saying to yourself, I'm going to trust myself and I'm going to go after this thing because it's something coming from inside rather than I'm waiting for the outside information. Like if a simple choice is chocolate or vanilla, and somebody asks you, why do you choose chocolate? Can you explain why you like chocolate? You like it. I mean, why does it matter? Why do you like it? You just like it. So it's a
Mm.
choice. A decision requires information, and it's more applicable in business or in life where you need information to make a decision. But a choice doesn't require information, just require that you choose. And the beauty about choice is that you can choose something and you can choose something different the next moment. So if I choose chocolate and I eat it and I'm not really liking this, you can choose the second thing, and without any blame, and you shouldn't have any blame, is just you completely experiencing where you are in the next moment.
Mm.
And the way you become better at choices is you make multiple choices, and you make wrong choices, and you make choices that doesn't work for you, and you make choices you don't like, and then until you reach choices that you like.
So
That
you
is
can
really
choose.
our
You could choose differently. Like that chocolate
yes.
ice cream analogy. Um, I might argue that my brain is wired that it just. I don't know why I like chocolate, but that's just my
Yeah.
go-to, and my brain actually chooses that every time. And unless you have conscious awareness of that to make a different choice, you may not choose differently because you just keep. And a lot of
Yeah.
people do this. They're just wired that way, so we just keep doing the same patterns over and over again.
Yeah, and that's completely fine as long as that serves you and as long as you're comfortable with it. The
Mm.
power of choice is that nobody can, you don't need to explain your choices. I mean, maybe people would ask you, why did you choose that person? And maybe you find, but you really don't know. You just know that you made the choice. Why do you play football? Why do you like football? Why do you like reading this book, not that book? You just know that you like it. These are choices are very, I would say, visceral things that are in connected to who we are that we don't know. And
Mm.
that's why the more choices you make, the more you know who you are. Because how do you know you only like chocolate unless you try vanilla and try strawberry? And so choice by definition is enhanced by making more choices and by making choices that you don't like. That's
Yeah.
when you discover, you know what, I chose other ice creams, but I still like vanilla. and
Yeah.
and nobody can argue with that. It's like, I like vanilla because I like vanilla.
Mm.
And that's why it's choices. Whereas anybody can argue with your decisions. They can say, well, you made the wrong decision because you didn't have this data, that data, or you interpreted the data wrong. But choices are very personal. And the more you do them, the more you have understanding of yourself and the more you learn about yourself. And we don't make enough of a choice all the time. We treat choices like decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we say, I'm not going to make, like, for example, somebody asks you, what do you want to eat? I don't know. I think pizza, but I don't know. I was like, no, just choose something. And you know what? And if it's wrong, next time you choose something else. And it's as simple as that. And the more you do of it, the more happier you get and the
Yeah.
more your life is accelerated.
Would you encourage people to more often make different choices?
100%. There are choices in life where, um, if you're anchored, see, if you practice choice all the time, you get to know yourself better. And the more you get to know yourself, the more you're in tune with the choices that serve you. What I mean serve you, sometimes think of that like as in like gets your life to be better. And that's not the case. Choices that serve you are choices that are aligned with how you actually feel. How many times you've heard of people who said, you know what, I chose that person, but I didn't really love them. Like they have all the appearances, like they're the right person, they're the right person for me. Choices are not about the right person. They're about the person that you truly love. For example, if we're talking about love or friendship, you're friends with people because you really feel a certain way around them. And you can't really explain it to someone because other people will come and tell you, like, when I chose my life partner, everybody told me, well, we don't see her for you, or we don't see you together. I was like, I don't care. I see that, and I feel it, and that's enough for my choice.
So
And it's
it's
the
it's
same thing
it's
when I played the guitar.
rather than a
Yeah, go ahead.
decision about the data of the person to make your decision to be with that person. It's more a choice of how you feel with that person.
Yeah, data that doesn't is not helpful because I have no clue who that person will be tomorrow. I just know that I love them today and I have all the love for them right now at this moment. And
Hmm.
choices are anchored in the moment. Now, if I wake up tomorrow and that feeling is not there, I choose a different person. And that's how it is.
Hmm.
There's no guarantees. That's the other thing
That's
I think.
interesting. Yeah.
The problem with the reason we postpone choice is because we want guarantee. I want to guarantee that if I choose this person, this is the person that's going to be right for me 20 years from now. And that can never happen.
Yeah.
Like, never happens. I mean, reality based, because you don't know who that person doesn't know who they're going to be in a year from now. You don't know who you're going to be in a year from now. So how can you make a choice that's going to be the right choice 20 years from now? You
Hmm.
can only make the right choice in the moment.
In the
And the
moment.
same
Yeah.
thing with
Yeah.
guitar, the same thing with choosing to podcast or choosing to write. It's right at this moment, and that's why you wake up the next day and you choose again. Steve Jobs is famous to have to wake up and ask himself. He stands in front of the mirror and asks himself, "If I die tomorrow, would I still be doing the same thing I'm doing right now?" And that is choice. Choice is about living in the moment. It's not about thinking about life as in 20 or 30 or 10 years or 5 years, because we have no clue. Choice is the only thing that is connecting us to who we were 30, 40,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, when we evolved as the species that we are. Decisions are the result of modern life. We didn't make decisions when we were 30,000 years ago because there was no future. You only lived in the moment, and you built in the moment, and you took care of your family in the moment because you don't know if a tiger is going to eat you tomorrow.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I like this. That's deep. The the path of life mastery is to, well, I assume to make those choices because we started off talking about, if you're in a job and you've been doing it for a decade and you're just like, well, I don't really like it anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it because what else am I going to do? And look at all that time and effort I've put into this. I'm going to leave that all behind. And you forget about the other successes you can have. But we need to encourage, people to make even small little different choices daily that can break them out of
Mm.
that existing pattern
Yeah,
if they're
you
truly
can.
unhappy.
Yeah, I would say first, before kind of distinguishing what choices are, start with small choices in your life. Start making choices more often. Like when somebody asks you, say the first thing that comes on your mind when you want to eat. Like, do you want pizza? Yes or no? Like, you don't have, if you make choices harder than they are, you are not trusting yourself, and you're going to trust yourself less with bigger choices,
Mm,
quote
mm,
unquote, let's say. For me, there are no bigger choices. There are just choices that you make and choices that you don't. It's as
mm,
simple as that. So, for example, I chose to be with my partner for life in an instant, and I told her, "Listen, you're the person for me." And she said, "How do you know?" I said, "I just know that right now, that's all that's present for me. That is my choice, and I think it's never going to change. But I don't know. But now that I want you more than anything else, and that's it." And we ended up being with each other for 30 years. So, so I couldn't, so I think, but I was always in my life, I was making choices all the time, like pursuing guitar, pursuing drawing. Anything that occurs to me, I will pursue it right away. And because in Syria we didn't have decisions. I'll explain what that means. You don't have a career in Syria. Like, I was studying engineering. There's no career said, you're gonna work as an engineer, and as an engineer you grow to become a senior engineer, and senior engineer, let's say you work, because as an electronics engineer who builds processors, there was only Intel and AMD, which both existed in the US. There's no future for that career in my life.
yeah.
I played with a band. There's no future for you as a musician in Syria, because all of the music we're talking about the 90s. If I wanted to be like the people I love, Brian Adams, who I got to meet in Canada,
Nice.
um, uh, he, for example, I had to be either in LA or New York. That's how the music industry worked, or maybe London. So there was no hope for anything that I touched. So it was more choices than decisions, because there was no data that told me that if I do XYZ, I'm likely to get, XYZ. I'll get, let's say, there. So it was more living in the moment. I was more living in the moment in Syria than anything else. I didn't understand it like that, just to be clear.
Mm,
Looking back, that's what happened.
yeah.
But that's what was available to me. So the more you do it, the more you take choices in your life, the more you make choices in the moment, the more comfortable you are with yourself. So now that you're aligned, and you understand that you like chocolate, you like certain things, you don't enter, because life will offer you so many choices. Like, you walk into a place like a Starbucks, and you have these menus, or you walk into a Chinese uh,
Yeah.
food place, and you have these menus with 100 things, and you're like, what do I choose? And that's how life is, because you have, let's say, if people, friends, you're surrounded by people, or food, or anything else. So if you're aligned with yourself, you'll always make certain choices, and you're comfortable with those choices. You either choose to try something new, or you do something that appeals to you, and you're comfortable enough so that if you make a wrong choice, you can make a different choice. For example, if you order food that you don't like, you don't force yourself to eat it. You say, I didn't like it. I took a risk. I'll choose something else. For
Mm,
example, you become
mm,
comfortable. And then you distinguish that between that and decisions, where are more about, let's say, what do I want out of life? What am I after? What is available to me? What kind of life do I want to design for myself? So you think about it, and you collect certain, what skills do I have? How likely I am to achieve that? So you approach it in a different way, and you start being smarter as you go about it. nothing's going to unfold immediately perfectly when you're 20. You're going to have to make certain mistakes, and you're going to have to accept that you're going to stumble along for a few years until you discover your domain, until you discover where you're good at, some of the things you suck at, some of the things that come naturally for you, and some of the things you really enjoy.
Yeah. When you talk about finding true purpose, what is that to you? Like, what is true purpose?
True purpose for me is something you choose to pursue. So I have a different approach than, I don't think you find your purpose. I think you choose your purpose, and then you choose it again when it changes. So before I joined, I'll give you an example, very recent example. When I first came to Vancouver, I had no idea that my purpose is to become a mentor, because I never experienced what that's like. I never knew the feeling of what it's like to mentor someone or to be mentored by someone. So I stumbled on a great community called Launch Academy, and as someone who's new to Vancouver and craving a community, I found home there. I some very successful entrepreneurs mentored me, and I really loved it. And when somebody asked me, it's like, hey, you have a background in marketing. Would you mind talking to some people about that? And I talked to some people, and I found purpose.
No.
I wouldn't have found it until I stumbled on it. So and I loved the idea of me being able to help entrepreneurs, and I wouldn't have known it until I done it. And I the more I did it, the more I liked it, and the more I liked it, the more I did it, and then I like, oh, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
it's
it could have been
it's
totally different. I mean, you could have done it and you could have gone, oh, that doesn't feel right. Oh, I
exactly
don't really like it.
exactly right. In
And then you
fact,
wouldn't have.
2009, I pursued coaching because I thought I think coaching is great. I listened to Anthony Robbins doing his TED talk, and he said, I'm a coach. I was like, I like that. I want to pursue that. And I went to a coaching course, and I coached, and I hated it because unlike coaches, I didn't have patience. I couldn't wait for the my client to find their way, because I was like, it's right there. I wanted to, like, right there, look at it. So, and
Yeah.
that's not really good when you're coaching. You really need to be patient or whatever. And I didn't have that. Whereas mentorship, you bring your experience, you're basically answering questions, and you're really direct, and you want to achieve a result really fast. So that appealed to me. And I wouldn't have known it until I stumbled on it. And I wouldn't have stumbled on it unless I was willing to test and try. Same thing with liking sushi. I ate sushi twice in my life before moving to Vancouver, and I hated it. And I said, I'm never gonna eat raw fish. This is the worst thing I've ever had. And in Vancouver, I was invited by a CEO that was trying to hire me, and he took me to a sushi place. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna hate this. But I couldn't say anything because I felt it would be rude to do that. So I chose to be kind to the person. I said, what is, like, I'm gonna eat it. What's the worst gonna happen? And the moment I tasted that sushi, I was like, what is this? This is incredible. And since then, because sushi in Vancouver is remarkable, and since then, I eat almost all the time sushi as much as I get it. So it's like that. It's like, unless you try and test and willing to take that risk on yourself, you're never going to find out what it is. So I am the advocate of choose your purpose. Don't try to find it. Choose your purpose until you stumble on something you really love, and you're going to end up loving a lot of things, and you're going to end up having multiple purposes in life. Or maybe you find the one thing. I don't know. Nobody knows who you are better than you,
Yeah, yeah.
but you better start to find out right now.
Yeah. And it's a path of navigation, right? And the more choices you can make and more things you can experiment, try with
Yeah.
passions, etc., the more you'll come aligned. I'm really fascinated about your process of having a level of awareness because I totally understand where you're coming from around choices and trying things. And, as you do, you sort of gather information that makes your life more purposeful and more intentful. But there's a lot of people that maybe find that difficult. The question I wanted to ask you actually was, being that you're a perfectionist, how do you find it to make those different choices? Is that sometimes a blockage?
Oh, certainly. That's why, in fact, choice is a solution for perfectionism, because it's as a perfectionist, nothing's ever over for me. Nothing's ever ready enough to release. So
Yeah.
I have to make the choice to release it. I have to make the choice. Let's say when I first started to play guitar, I wasn't ready to play guitar, but I had to make the choice. I was like, okay, this is ready to present it to the love of my life. I wrote her songs, for example, or to play on national radio when I had the chance, or to show up even on national TV in front of 40 million viewers, even though I've never been in my life in front of TV or in front of a TV camera. So you're never fully ready. At least for me, I was never fully ready. I had to choose to take the chance because there was never enough information. Perfectionism relies on the information that if I do this, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be successful, it's going to be
Yeah.
exactly right. So it depends a lot on information. And choice doesn't operate in information, it's a completely different domain.
Mm.
And most of the things I did in life, I had zero information. I had zero information that I'll be good in guitar. So it has to be a choice to pursue guitar, to pursue to sing, to pursue to be on TV. So that's why I rely on choices to actually counter my perfectionism.
How have you developed this skill to be that have that level of awareness to understand how you feel? Because that's got to be a practice, I would assume. I mean, do you practice mindfulness, meditation, anything like that?
Um, I tried. The only times I'm mindful is when that's why I love guitar, is when I'm actually either designing, writing, or playing the guitar. I'll be very, very honed in and focused. Or walking. Walking works very well for me. It's never been like I've never been able to sit still and be like my mind races and I have a lot of ideas. So the way I found like my path to this is, first of all, a lot of reading. So what I realized is when I started reading is I will start, and I think I had the advantage because I wasn't in the States. I would read for writers that, let's say, are writing for people in the States, let's say about business. And a lot of the things, let's say they say, go visit or go join your chapter of, let's say, Toastmasters. And I wouldn't have a chapter of Toastmasters. So a lot of the things I had the opportunity because I didn't have those things. So I had to make up, well, what can I replace it with? So I took the methods that were, or the advice that I had, and I had to find a different way to apply it. So it gave me more, I would say, space to apply my own or to have my own interpretation. And I realized that with that, I found my own way in a way. And it's not much like unlike the how artists used to become artists. You would go join another artist and you would train under them and you try to perfect their style or to follow in their footsteps until your style shows up. So I think the way that I found who I am is to pursue to become somebody else, and then being well attuned to what bubbles inside of me, if that
Mm.
makes any sense. So
Yeah,
I
it
wasn't
does.
shy of pursuing to becoming somebody else. I wanted to be Anthony Robbins. I wanted to climb Mount Everest. I wanted to speak on the TED stage. I wanted all these things that looked nice for other people until I found what I want for me. And when I
Yeah.
found what I want for me, I wasn't shy of pursuing it.
Mm. I can certainly relate, and I think sometimes that's how things start. You know, you look out there and go, okay, I want to, that looks good. I'm going to give that a try. And then through that process, you go, okay, well, that's great, but it's not quite who I am. This is how the podcast here exists. I
Mm,
started it because I saw these other podcasts. I thought, oh, that looks really good. Had a curious mind, so I thought the idea of interviewing people was great. And then it's just evolved into this like personal passion project, which I have
yeah,
done for over a decade and just absolutely enjoy. And that's a choice. Now, I could have
good for
given
you.
up like most people do at, 12 months and go, oh, it's not giving me any money or whatever doesn't feel right. But because it makes me feel so good, I continue to do it.
Yeah. And that's how we learn. If you look at kids, how do they learn? Before school, you learn language by listening to your parents and wanting to be like them, and you start talking like them even, and you say until you have your own style of talking, and you like certain words. I remember because I wanted to, I love the English language as well, that I like certain words, but I never knew their meaning. In fact, the way I learned English is I would never look up a word in the dictionary. I wanted to learn the word from how people use it. So there are a lot of words that I didn't know what they mean until later. Like I would always use like a word that I usually like contemplate, and I never really knew like and still I don't know the actual, let's say, dictionary meaning of contemplate, but I can use it and I know how it what it where it fits and how it what it means intuitively. So I wanted to learn like how other people learn, and I would read a book, and even if I didn't understand certain languages, I will trust myself that at a certain point it will start to make sense to me.
Mhm.
So that's how I learned, and it was a choice. And I'm not advising that people pursue that, like other people learn in different ways, but that's how I pursued it, and that's how I like to develop my language skills.
Wow. Mate, there's some powerful lessons in this interview, and certainly your book as well. So I want to encourage anyone listening to go out and pick up a copy of this. Conversation has intrigued you. You'll certainly get more out of the book as well. Hussein, where would you like to end this? Where would you like to lead people to yourself, and any final thoughts or anything we haven't explored that you'd like to sort of talk on?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for this wonderful conversation. I would say, wherever you're going, just ask yourself this question. If you had all the time and money and everything you want in the world, what would you go after? What this does, it makes you clear or honest with yourself of what you would pursue, because it's no longer, there are no limitations. So, and if you don't have the answer, wait for the answer to come in. Ask, let the answer come in from inside rather than just, something that sounds logical. It
Hmm.
needs to feel deeply inside. You need to feel it. And
Yeah.
whatever that is, ask yourself, with the limitations that you have right now, what is one step you can take or one choice you can make to get even an inch closer towards that? And do that and see how that feels. And guess what? If it doesn't feel right or it feels something different, you can make a different choice now that you're inch closer. And
Yeah.
if you continue to engage with that question, I think a lot of things will open up for you, and you can always pick up the book, and hopefully it will add value to you. And if not, let me know. I'll return it to you.
So, I'll stick all the links in the show notes, guys, to thehiddenwhy.com. You can check out the show notes there with Hussein. All his links, Instagram, website, etc., will be there, and of course the book as well. So make sure you jump on there and check that out. Hussein, wonderful conversation. Thank you to have coming on the show, and would love to do it again sometime.
Thank you, Leigh. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me.
Guys, check it out, the Hidden Why podcast. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.